Hello everybody, this is Bradley from RaceBeacon, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new FIA safety procedures that they are putting in place to reduce the effects of porpoising on the drivers, and why this, well, the protest for Mercedes may well have backfired. So we can see here the FIA takes steps to reduce porpoising in the interest of safety. So this is something that has been really prevalent. We saw the first clear example of a driver being quote unquote injured by the porpoising in Lewis Hamilton at Azerbaijan as he struggled to get out the car and his rear end going a little bit numb during the race. Now, for anyone who may have seen some of my streams over on Twitch, they will know that I am not a fan of the teams complaining about porpoising, mostly because A, it's their design, and secondly, every team that's complaining can put steps in place to reduce it. So this is really important for taking into account what effects these changes will have. I'll get onto the changes in just 1 second, but you need to understand how to fix porpoising first to really get the full effect. So to fix porpoising, obviously you can go for a completely different aero philosophy, but it's not going to be as quick. Or alternatively, you can raise the ride height, which increases drag down the straights and decreases downforce through the corners. That's why you will always see in Formula 1, especially with these regulation of cars, them running as low as possible to the ground. Because with the new ground effect on these 2022 regulations, it means that there's so much more downforce generated by the floor, and the lower you are down to the floor, the more downforce you're getting. Up until the point when you hit the floor, which is what a lot of teams are facing a problem with. So what changes have the FIA put in place? I'll read directly from the website here and then we'll sort of explain it ahead. A technical directive has been issued to give guidance to the teams about the measures the FIA intends to take to tackle the problem. These include 1. Closer scrutiny of the planks and skids. These are the parts of the car that actually hit the floor. So this is, where porpoising is happening. It's hitting the floor. Both in terms of their design and the observed wear. That's very big. Obviously, we'll get onto the concept of penalties and stuff a little bit later on. 2. The definition of a metric based on the car's vertical acceleration. And trust me, this one's interesting. I'll show you pictures in a second of exactly how we can measure this. That will give a quantitative limit for the acceptable level of vertical oscillations. The exact mathematical formula for this metric is still being analysed by the FIA, and the Formula 1 teams have been invited to contribute to this process. In addition to these short-term measures, the FIA will convene a technical meeting with the teams in order to define measures that will reduce the propensity, what does that word mean? An inclination or natural tendency to behave in a particular way of cars to exhibit such phenomena in the medium term. The FIA has decided to intervene following consultation with its doctors in the interests of safety of drivers. Then we go on to in a sport 300 km an hour, blah, 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 blah. So, basically, it's dangerous for drivers. That's what this whole paragraph means. So, from the first point we look at here, so closer scrutiny of the planks and skids. So, that's obviously, like I said before, the bits of the car that are actually hitting the floor. They're the lowest parts of the car, and that's, often what we see creating the sparks. And also, what you hear rubbing against the floor when the cars are porpoising. So, this is both in terms of their design, so the FIA, by the sounds of it, will have the ability to make decisions on team designs, so whether designs get approved in the first place if they may lead to an increase in porpoising, and the observed wear. So at the end of the race, obviously, it will be looking at the wear that's happened on the planks and the skids. If it's too much, if the porpoising has therefore been too much or the ride height too low, then you'll probably get disqualified or a small penalty. So this is the more interesting one for me. Number 2, the definition of a metric based on a car's vertical acceleration. So there are ways to measure this. Let me bring something up for you. So here we have some data from the Azerbaijan race. Now, I can't lie, I'm not 100% sure where this comes from. Equally, I'm not 100% sure who has sourced this information, and I mean, technically, if it's 100% legitimate, but looking at the data, it all makes sense. Whoever's designed this, clearly, at very least, has made a great fake, because everything that we're seeing here makes sense. As the cars are lightening up, we're seeing more porpoising and so on. So this is, let's just say it's true. I mean, look, straight away, we know Mercedes are struggling more with porpoising than other teams. So any limit, let's say originally the FIA put a 0.6 G limit in place on vertical acceleration for the oscillations. That means most teams are there or thereabouts already. Obviously, Aston Martin, it looks like, might be struggling a little bit. But look, for the most part, most teams are around that 0.6 window. I think it would probably start around 0.6 to 0.65 if they put anything in place. And then probably throughout the course of the season, they'll try to reduce it down to like 0.5, 0.55, something along those lines. But basically what this means is if they set an upper limit, it means Mercedes, very clearly here, being at times 0.15 higher than the average that we're seeing in the rest of the field, they're going to have to sacrifice a considerable amount of performance. So while Mercedes, I think, came into Azerbaijan with a mindset of trying to get new rules implemented to help with porpoising, I really, really think it's backfired here. They made a very clear point several times in the last couple of races to bring up porpoising, and this was the most they have complained about it on a safety level. So, I mean, to be fair to them, if they're expecting other teams to have to suffer a little bit, but them suffer a lot, it's commendable to care about driver safety, but obviously whatever their intentions were, whatever they were wanting, obviously hasn't quite played out. We'll have to see, of course, when these rules get implemented, after it's all discussed, what effect this will actually have, but I think the clear effect we can predict straight away is Mercedes are going to have to completely redesign their floor, very likely, or run at a much higher ride height, which, as I said earlier in the video, means increased drag on the straights and decreased downforce through the corners. So ultimately, in simple terms, that means they're going to be going slower on the straights and slower through the corners. So what do you guys think of this? What would you like to see the FIA do to fix porpoising? Do you think this is fair? Do you think this is a legitimate thing that the FIA are going to put in place? Do you like Mercedes complaining about this as well? A couple of drivers we have seen have injuries. I think Kevin Magnussen talked about something like a nerve in his neck. We've seen some fairly, what seem to be legitimate injuries on drivers. So are you happy with these steps coming into effect? What steps would you like to see taken? And do you agree with what the FIA are saying so far? I'll be bringing any updates to this story because it's absolutely key to the this whole package of aero regulations going forwards. So I'll be bringing an update. So if you got this far, if you could leave a like, that would really mean a lot. It just means this video gets spread to more eyes and it really, really helps out the channel. And while you're at it, please do subscribe as well. You never have to watch another one of these videos again, but it makes that little number go up and that makes me happy. So I guess there's nothing else to say, but enjoy the weekend at Canada and until next time. Goodbye.